guys. So today we're going to do a video that's a little bit different. This is a video that I've been meaning to do pretty much since we rebooted the channel. So it's been a long time coming, but yes, today we're going to discuss cosplaying with autism, Asperger's syndrome. This might have some crossover with social anxiety, ADHD, and especially since it's April and we're lighting up red, I wanted to try and get it finished this month. Just so people know where I'm coming from, I myself have been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome since I was 12, and one thing that I keep seeing on, especially on Facebook and things like that, is people posting, I'm planning on going to an event with my partner, my friend, my sibling, my child who has autism, and I'm worried that they won't be able to handle being in a convention. Does anyone have any advice on what I can do to help? And I've also seen equally people being like, I'm planning on going to my first convention soon, but I'm really worried because I have XYZ and I'm worried that I won't be able to handle the environment. It's a very valid concern. Speaking as someone who's multiple times had sensory meltdowns and overloads at conventions, it's a very valid concern. So I thought I'd make a video going through a few tips I have in order to make conventions more doable. Obviously, the various disorders that I've said is a very broad spectrum. What works for me won't work for everyone, but hopefully it will at least give people a spring point. If you feel like there's something really obvious that I missed, feel free to drop it down in my comments. The first thing that I wanted to point out was cosplays. If you're planning on cosplaying to the convention, it is fine to pick the character or the costume that you're doing based entirely on what makes you feel more comfortable. It's fine to edit the costumes to make them more comfortable. It is fine to do workarounds so that they are wearable. One thing it can be worth doing if you're like me and have an issue with a lot of textures is don't ever buy fabrics until you have either gone physically to a shop and felt them, or you've ordered a lot of online shops will let you order just like a small swatch and you can just touch them and immediately be like, ah, yes, ooh, no. It's also fine to, if you have no choice but to use certain things that you know will drive you up the wall, put linings in, cover up seams, cut out labels, anything that you feel you need to do. For example, I have Kiri here. The feathers here for Kiri, the actual top of the trim is a very stiff ribbon with the pointy ends of the feathers pointing out. And since it's sewn inside the sleeve, I've actually had to cover up the seam with some jersey bias just to make it so that it's not constantly pricking me in the underside of the arm and driving me nuts. Most people probably wouldn't have been bothered by that. Me, I'm very bothered by that. So I changed it. Another thing it can also be worth doing when it comes to planning out what you're going to wear is having on days and off days, having cosplays that you know are comfortable in addition to cosplays that you know are not. I personally will generally plan conventions where I'm going for multiple days and I'm cosplaying for multiple days. I will have an on day, which is generally the day when I'm planning on entering competitions, or the day when I have a lot of shoots planned, where I'm wearing something that I know has certain elements in it that will annoy me. But then I will also have what I call a flop cosplay, which means that I still have the benefit of being in cosplay and not having... I feel very awkward when I'm at a convention, I'm not in cosplay. I want to be in costume all the time. So I tend to plan out these flop cosplays that I can be comfortable in, that I can wear in the evenings, that I can wear on the last day of conventions and not feel so uncomfortable in, because I know that there's certain things built in them that make me calmer. One cosplay that's like this that a lot of people are surprised to hear actually is my Blue Diamond cosplay from Steven Universe. The dress is purely stretch. It's very long and loose, so it doesn't bother me at all. The face paint is actually a lot easier than makeup is, so because it's just slapped on blue and it's mostly covered anyway. And the inside of the veil of that costume is actually a really lovely soft georgette fabric, which I can pull over my entire face. So if I'm having an issue and I need to just be in my own bubble, I can literally just be in my own bubble of lovely feeling fabric that I love to rub my face on. Another flop cosplay of mine that's possibly more obviously a flop is Bo from Critical Role, who is basically just a tank top and pajama bottoms with a coat over the top that's really loose. So she's super comfy. She doesn't require a wig or any sort of headgear at all, really, which is one of the things that often drives me mad about cosplays, is having things constantly gripping in my head. So she's very good to have for like on the Sunday or for in the evening when I want to still be in the spirit, I want to still be cosplaying, but I know that I won't be able to deal with having a lot of makeup on, a big wig on, something that's very itchy. This is just my workarounds. Number 2. So there's a lot of videos going around on what should be inside your con bag. A lot of those videos are great, but one thing I would make an addition for is if you are someone who, like me, tends to overload in very noisy environments, it can be advisable if you have either earplugs or noise cancelling headphones or something, just to pop those in your bag so that you can, if you need to, put them on when you're in like the trading hall or something. I've occasionally had to have earplugs in because they're very cramped spaces, they're very loud, everyone's talking very loudly, and can't deal with it. So I have these putty earplugs that I can just put inside my ears. They're very discreet and not many people can tell I'm wearing them. I've often got a wig over my ears anyway. Another thing possibly to include if you're someone who find that having fidget cubes, fidget spinners, spinner rings, various stim toys, put them in your bag, bring them with you. Why not? Also, I would say something that I personally find useful to have in the bag is something like, say, a reading book, a DS, a phone, something where you can take 5 minutes out of the convention just to sit down and just focus on doing something. Often for me, that's actually my camera. That's part of the reason why I vlog so much and why I tog so much. When I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed, when I'm feeling like I need 5 minutes of quiet, I can go into a corner, I can look at my camera, I can look back over the photos I've already taken. Also with the vlog, it means that I can just sort of like feel like I'm doing something when I'm needing to have a flop. Something that's distracting but not too distracting, if that makes sense. Speaking of things that go in your con bag, food, snacks, drinks. I know a lot of people struggle with only having very limited diets of what they can cope with. I personally, for example, there's only certain brands of drink that I can cope with. There's a lot of things I can't eat. So generally my advice is do your research before you go to the con, see what is around, see what's available. Are there restaurants and places where you can buy food near the convention that you know stock things that you can eat? If you contact the convention organisers or possibly the people who own the event space, what do you have available? Is there a bar, a restaurant, a cafe? What sort of things do you stock? Is it something that I think I'd be safe eating? Sometimes some conventions will be not thrilled about you bringing your own food in, but most are fine. If possible, bring a pack up, bring snacks, bring your own food, fill your boots, fill the boot of your car. I will fully admit at some conventions where they've banned outside food, I have just filled my car with the food that I know is safe and had a picnic in my car. Make sure that you have enough to last you for the day and then some, because what people don't realise is that you're actually being a lot more active on a convention day than you might think you are. Also, you're socialing a lot and that makes you tired. It's easier to deal with that when you're not hangry on top of everything else. Tangential to that, I would also advise, I know that a lot of us get really excited before conventions and we get too excited to have breakfast. No. Eat before you go. The amount of people I have seen come to me on like the second or third day of a convention like, oh, I just feel rotten. I don't know why. When did you last eat? Yesterday evening. Well, why do you think you feel rotten then? Try and make sure that you have something before you put your outfit on, before you leave the door. Speaking of contacting the organisers, it can also be worth either contacting the con organisers or contacting people who've been to the convention before, whether that's directly emailing or talking to people you know who've gone before, or just putting posts on like the Facebook event page, just to ask, is there in this event a chill out zone, a quieter area, somewhere where you would advise that I go if I'm struggling? This doesn't have to be, and I know a lot of convention organisers when I've spent this have said, well, we can't have a special disabled panic room anxiety area. It doesn't have to be that. Just something like, say, for example, an anime screening room where it's quiet and dark and I can just sit and be quiet for 5 minutes. A gaming room can be this if it's not too loud with people playing games. That's a bit iffy. Some gaming rooms are good for relaxing, some gaming rooms aren't. It'll depend on who's playing in there. Sometimes if there's a cafe or some kind of lounge on site, that can be good. You can just sit, have a drink and just take 5 minutes to decompress from the event. I know that it's very easy to, especially because dealer rooms and main stage events tend to be very loud, very crowded, very packed. A lot of the thoroughfares will be very packed and busy. It's very easy to quickly get overwhelmed. So finding out where the quiet spaces are, main tip I can give to people is just find the quiet spaces. Sidebar, if you are someone who's planning on running a cosplay event and is watching this thinking, how can I make it more inclusive for people? That's one of the main things I would say. Make sure that in addition to having your rooms with your dealer rooms and your panels and your stage events going on, you have a room that's being quieter. It's not just people with anxiety. People with big bulky cosplays also want a space where they can just sit down and be like, I need to shed 5 layers now. I need to collapse. I cannot people anymore. It's a very common feeling to need half an hour of just quiet time, chill time in the middle of the convention. My next point, bring a buddy. Don't go alone. I realise that for a lot of people who maybe don't have that many friends, this can be something that just seems impossible. Especially if you're like, there's no one who I know who's interested in this sort of a thing. If I ask, they'd think it's really weird. I don't want to be a burden on my friends the entire time. But honestly, just for safety's sake, it's so much better if you go with someone that you know. You don't need to spend the entire con glued to people's hips, but just if I have an issue, I know that this person knows me, this person knows I have issues, this person is capable of, if all else fails, getting me out of here and into a quieter, safer space. Some of the worst times that I've had at conventions have been when I've gone to conventions on my own and I've had a sensory overload whilst on my own because I didn't realise I was having one until it was too late. It is so much better to just have someone with you. Also, conventions are just more fun with friends. If you are planning on meeting up with and spending the entire day with people who've never met you before, people who don't necessarily know you so well, it can maybe be a good idea just to slip them the wink of, not necessarily out yourself, but just, hey, sometimes I have been known to get overwhelmed in these sorts of environments, just to let you know, it's entirely likely that I may sometimes need to take 5 minutes out. If I get snappish, that's probably all it means. Most people will be fine with that. If they're not fine with that, then they're not people you should be hanging around with, to be fair. I don't feel like that's much to ask of people to be like, please wait for me if I need 5 minutes. If you are watching this video and you're planning on being that person, have a chat with the person that you're going with, have a moment of, is there anything that you know specifically sets you off, anything that you specifically want to avoid? Do you want to spend the entire convention with me, or are you happy wandering off on your own and just meeting up occasionally? Discuss amongst yourselves, plan your own time. What am I, your mother? That's what this video is turning into, isn't it? It's me being your con mum. Oh no. So, second last one. This is sort of 2 in 1. So 1, feel free to look up the con timetable before and plan out your day. I know I personally feel a lot more secure in going to places if I have a bit of a plan timetable in my head, but you also should be aware that that timetable may not pan out the way that you want it to. Let's make up a hypothetical con day. I know that the con is starting at 10. I know that there is a panel talk that I want to go to at 12. I know that there is a fan meet that I want to go to at 1:30, and I know that I want to enter the cosplay contest, which is at 3:30. So that's 4 things that I know of that have times attached to them. There's a lot of space in that timetable for me to meet up with people and for me to go and look around buying things, so I think that feels like a pretty good. However, say for example, oh no, my costume took longer than I thought to put on, and then there was an issue with transport getting to the convention and I didn't get there until an hour later, so therefore some of that time got squished, and then when I went to the panel that overran and I had to run to the meetup, and so because they were both at midday I forgot to have proper lunch in that time slot and remembered halfway through the fan meet, so then had to ditch out of the fan meet to have something to eat before quickly running back to the competition. That sort of a thing happens. I probably would be a pretty narked person if all of that happened, and anyone who's gone to conventions can tell you that if we're late setting off, I'm one of the people that's top of the list getting agitated about it. This is partly why I'm sorry guys, I feel the dominoes starting to fall and it makes me go. So yeah, I guess that's my advice, is like, look up times, be aware of when times are. I often have alarms going off on my phone. Another thing to do with planning out what you're going to do, it's completely fine if you don't want to do things that your friends want to do. It's completely fine if you want to do things that none of your friends want to do. Do them anyway, and it's completely fine to be picky about what you do. For example, I've had a lot of people that are very surprised that I have such issues around noise and that, knowing that I've been to a lot of cons that are like 3-4 day long conventions with a rave and disco every night and lots of drinking going on, and generally have a bit of a reputation for being very rowdy. To which my answer is, yeah, but I don't go to those parts though. The reason I go to a lot of those longer conventions is because they also generally have a lot of activities on in the day which are panels, and I want to do those. I'm not very bothered about the evening activities. Some of the people that I go to those things with do want to do the evening activities, and that's fine. They go off in the evening to rave it up and get drunk, and I either also go out to, say, a smaller panel, or maybe to a gaming night, play some D&D, maybe do some karaoke because that's my jams, or I might just get an early night and be the only one in my group who doesn't have a hangover and can feel smug in the morning. It's fine. You don't need to do everything that your friends need to do. And yeah, so my last point is just be prepared that you might need to leave early and maybe you just can't do it. This is the sad reality of it, that sometimes, yeah, the answer is, will this person be able to deal with this convention? No. No, they can't. But just because you couldn't deal with one specific convention doesn't mean that you can't deal with all conventions. I don't want to name names of specific events, although I think some people who know me could make a guess at what I'm referring to here. But there are some events that I don't go to anymore, or there would need to be a heck of a good thing happening at that event in order to persuade me to go again. I can have panic attacks at home for free. I don't want to spend so much money on a hotel and a ticket and costumes and that just to also have a horrible time. But there are other conventions that honestly you would have to pay me not to go because I just have so much fun there. Not all cons are equal, and different cons will work better for different people. It's also completely fine to be like, I want to go, but I'm not going to go for the entire thing. I'm only going to go for the morning. I'm only going to go for one day. Or be like, I'm going to go, but I need to take like an hour-long break in the mid-afternoon and then come back to it in the evening. I just need time away from the space. It's fine to take a break. Those people who've hung around with me at those, like I say, the longer 4-day-long conventions will know that often around sort of like 4-ish, I will just disappear from the convention and then I won't reappear until about 6 or 7. And what I'm doing in that time is normally I'm getting some food, I'm having a shower, I'm having a nap, I'm having a quiet time, I'm watching my YouTube. I need it for my own health. I need the time apart. I haven't often needed it in smaller events, but often with smaller events, if I'm having that bad of a time, I'll just leave early. And this is something that again goes out to those of you who are watching this who are planning on accompanying someone with issues to an event. You may have to leave early. I realise that it sucks. You spent money on tickets, you spent money on your costume, you're having a great time, and it's just this one person who's with you, and gosh damn it, can't they suck it up? You just want to spend some more time here. It's the reality of the situation, I'm afraid. Sometimes you just can't do it and you need to leave. It's just something to be aware of, that the best thing you can do in that situation is literally just help the person out into a quieter space. Again, ascertain from them, do you need to leave for good, or do we just need 10 minutes sat here having some breathing, or do we just need to go and find you something to eat, sit in the car, be quiet for half an hour, and then we can go back? Play it by ear, see how it goes. Just because they need to leave doesn't necessarily mean they won't want to come back, doesn't necessarily mean that you can't come back, just might mean that you have to help them make sure that they can get home safely first. I think that's all the points that I had to make. I feel like I've forgotten something, but I can't remember what. I've honest to God been agonising over this script all month because I feel like I'm forgetting things and I can't think of anything. If you have thought of the thing that I forgot that's been bothering me for a month, please put it down in the comments because I'll be so glad to finally know what it was that I forgot. If you like this style of video, please let us know. It's something that we'd certainly be up for doing more of, this sort of just discussing con tips and that. So feel free to, again, tell us down below if you want to see more of this sort of video, and subscribe if you want to see this sort of video so that we know that, so that you won't miss it if we do decide to make more. If you want to hear me talking more specifically about cosplay mental health, I will be taking part in the cosplay mental health panel. I'll be talking on it at Yorkshire Cosplay Con. I will put the more specific details around because I've forgotten what it was and I don't want to check, and that will also be the next thing that we vlog. As always, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and comment if you have an idea for what that other stuff should be. Bye guys.
It was fun to get together. Everyone knows your name. They're telling me I'm lucky to have this new found fame. Oh,
stay safe going to conventions, and don't be me and pass out on the floor of a thoroughfare for 2 hours.